Hello and welcome to our latest entry of the how-to series, which is silent testing. Or if you're watching this in the archives, welcome to an entry into our how-to series, which may not be the most recent. We're going to be looking at how we run silent tests on the Alertus web console to hit the endpoints of Alertus desktop, IP text-to-speech units, and alert beacons. Go ahead and sign in here and walk through the process. Our end goal for today is an automatic silent system test on Alert Beacon, TTS, and Alertus Desktop, conducted the first Monday of every month at noon 30, automatically without any human intervention. We're going to be building this completely from scratch so that we can all follow along. So to do this, we're going to need to target 3 different types of devices, and to target devices in the Alertus web console, we use alert services. The first one we know is alert beacons. This will come default pre-packaged in your web console, and on this screen, there is not a thing you need to do. I'll show you real fast what this one looks like. Generally, these have variables you can change, but you can see for alert beacons, it works a little bit different, and we'll be setting that on the preset alert itself. We will, however, be creating one for Alertus Desktop and for text-to-speech. Text-to-speech has a few variables though, so before we start into it, we're going to take a look at a couple related pages. First one is the sounds page. One of the options we'll have is, instead of playing out the audio from the text-to-speech alert itself, we can replace it with a pre-configured WAV file. So for today, I have uploaded a 1 second long silent WAV file that I'll be using called silenttest.wav. And in an exciting presentation, you can listen to this 1 second of silence. Fantastic. This is what we're going to be playing for our TTS silent test. We're also going to be talking about the relay behavior on it, so it's not too confusing. This is a newer addition to the Alertus server, and if we don't set it, it might be a little bit difficult to understand what it's asking for. We don't want any confusion in emergency alerting. So on the text-to-speech page, where we have listed any text-to-speech units that are signed in and any profiles they're using, at the bottom, we also have relay profiles. Much like the back of an alert beacon, text-to-speech devices also have a set of hardwired dry contact relays that we can set the behavior for. This is when they open and close. So the mode can be during the text-to-speech part itself only, which is when the audio is actually playing via text-to-speech, during the entire activation time, which you'll see this no active alerts. If you set it to be a 30-minute alert, the text-to-speech is 5 minutes long. This will continue going during the entire activation, or custom. We're going to be doing a custom duration of 1 second. Now, ideally, we'll have nothing configured to these relays, so nothing will matter here, but we're just doing this for the sake of example. So I'm going to call this relay behavior silent test. So there will only be 1 second of duration during it, and we'll hit confirm. Now, keep in mind, this isn't the audio being played out through the device. It is only if you have hardwired in additional peripherals to your IP text-to-speech device. These are things like sirens or strobes or additional peripherals that take a signal wire input to turn on. So we're just going to say for this particular relay profile, they'll just flash once, real fast, real subtle. Now then, we have our sound, which is going to be silent. We have our relay profile, which is going to be just 1 second, irregardless of the duration of the text-to-speech or the activation time. Now, finally, we can create the alert service for text-to-speech. So we can come back to alert services, and we're going to add a new one. You can have multiple types of the same flavor of alert service. You can see we have a couple different Alertus desktops. We're going to create an additional text-to-speech here as well. So go to add alert service. We're just going to call this one silent test text-to-speech. Now for service type, we got like 50 of these. It takes forever to find it. So I always just type in the search base, makes it a lot easier. Now we see why we had to do these additional settings. It's a little bit overwhelming at first glance, but it's actually not too bad. What we have here is our original audio will either be text to speech generated from the text of the alert, or you can replace that with an audio wave file, which is what we're going to be doing today with the 1 second of silence. This is the alert audio play. We can also concatenate on a pre-wave and a post-wave to play before or after, and repeat this, and then repeat the whole shebang between a replay delay. For us, because we're just doing it silent, we don't need any pre-wave. We're going to use silent 1 second. Let's see if I can find that real fast. Oh goodness, I'm sure for those looking at home, it is reaching right out at you and driving you crazy as I cannot seem to select it. Let's see if this one. Silent test.wave. There it is. I'm just going to play that once. No post wave. No replay delay seconds. Everything's just going to be once. Speech rate doesn't matter. We're going to have no LEDs. The LED scroll speed doesn't matter then. Nothing else here matters. And we're going to choose silent test as a relay behavior. I'm also going to put 1 in this as well, just to make sure. Let's go ahead and add our alert service. So we now have text to speech as a silent alert. So we have our alert beacon. We've got a text to speech. The only one we need now is Alertus Desktop. This one, like alert beacon, also acts a little bit weird. I'll show you what I mean. If I go to add an alert service for Alertus Desktop here, see that there's only one variable we can select, which is a profile. Alertus Desktop as an alert service is a container class that lets you put a name and description on a desktop profile. So the desktop profile is what we actually need to edit here. So this is also under configure system. We can go to desktop profiles. Let's go ahead and add a new one, which will be a silent test. This dash in here as well, just for consistency. If you're wondering why I'm using the alert service in the name here as well, it's just for the ease of searching later when I'm creating the preset alert. I'm going to be typing part of the name to be able to pull up the one I'm looking for. And using both the name of the intended service and its intended use just makes it easier on myself. Go ahead and do pop-up, which is a most flexible example. And we should have a pop-up template for our hidden test right here. Now we can see, if we look at our raw HTML of this, that we are in fact doing a 1 pixel by 1 pixel square in the very bottom corner of the screen. And it is completely transparent. This is exactly what we need. An alert that goes out to a desktop and is completely invisible and silent. So on the bottom right, with no size, no audio, and just using the default behaviors. This looks perfect to me. We'll go ahead and add this desktop profile. Now, it's asking me here if I want to create a new alert service. I could say no and manually do it, but this is just going to save us a little bit of time. So I'm going to click create a new alert service, and we'll call this the same thing. Alertus Desktop. Nope, I will spell it properly. Or ostensibly spelled properly. Perfect. There we go. So we now have the 3 intended alert services that we're going to use in our preset alert. I've also prepared a message template for this, but we'll talk about that in the preset alert itself. So under configure system, we've done our alert services. Now let's move on to generating the preset alert itself right here. We will add a preset alert. If we wanted to create a special picture for it here, we could, to show that it is system oriented or not directed by a human. But for us, we're just going to focus on the core functionality here. So I'm going to add a preset alert and just use one of the existing styles. This preset type is where you would change the style. We'll just use default for now. I like to start my automated or system initiated by beginning with or prefacing with automated or silent test. That way it is not accidentally sent by human user error later in the process. So I just created a silent test message here. You can create one that is consistent with your standard operating procedures at your organization. This should be just fine. I'm going to make this the lowest possible priority so that any other alert would override it. A minimum here is 2 minutes. If you want to set your minimum to be less than that, you can do so under the system settings of your alerted system, which is right here under settings and configure system. But 2 minutes is perfectly fine for me for this purpose, as the devices we're targeting have a check-in heartbeat time of about 20 seconds. And there could be some sort of packet loss or network connectivity issues within the infrastructure. That is, after all, why we test. I think 2 minutes is a good window to be able to ensure that we have valuable data on whether or not an alert would be sent throughout all of the endpoints of your system, even across the country if we're doing a larger network. Now here, we're going to choose Error Alert Services. I named all of these based off of silent test and with their functionality. So it should be easy to type in silent. And we have Alerts Desktop silent test and our text to speech one. We do, of course, need to add the alert beacon as well. Now, if you recall, the alert beacon did not have any settings we could edit in the alert service itself, but here in the preset alert section, we can expand it pressing this plus sign. Here we have the options for all of our durations in peripherals. We're going to have no duration so that there will be no active visual effects. It will be silent and without any visual alerts. Given our intended use case, we could enable or disable the peripherals. If, for instance, we want the LED marquee to display that this is a system test and confirm the LED marquee is functioning, we could enable or disable it. For our purposes, we want this to be as silent and unobstructive as possible. That way it can be run during normal business hours while people are there to monitor and make any possible corrections that might be needed in the infrastructure in the same day. So to confirm, we have a name of our alert that will avoid user error. We have a simple, concise message that tells people that no action is required and that this is an expected test. We have settings that will be unobtrusive for all 3 of our intended endpoints. Now we just need to choose our recipients. This is a full system test, so I'm going to go ahead and choose all. Now, it's important to note that the targeted recipients of a preset alert are the overlap between the delivery methods and the recipients. If you click all here and you have HPSA systems or digital signage or other endpoints, even like VoIP phones, if they are not selected as an alert service, they will not receive this alert. Only the specified designated types of devices here will receive this. In this case, alert beacons, IP text-to-speech units, and Alertus Desktop. And of those types, all of them will receive this alert. I'm going to go ahead and add this preset alert. We now have an automated system test that is silent right here set up. We're not going to start because we don't want users seeing it on their main menu. So we've got a preset alert. We could send this manually every first Monday of the month, or we could have it be set up to be automated. And that's the selection that I'm going to do today. So still under configure system, we're going to look at scheduled alerts, which is right here under preset. Here in scheduled alerts, we have a few different panels here. The others are empty right now because we have no scheduled alerts, but as soon as we add this in, we'll be able to see their functionality. So we can create a new scheduled alert. The name will be Silent System Test. System test. I find that to be a great time because most people are at lunch and no one would be bothered. So we're going to use the preset, which is Automated Silent System Test. We're going to do it by weeks or by months, excuse me. On the first Monday, every 1 month, we could do less frequently if we were so inclined, or we could do it by every 2 weeks if we wanted to go by weeks, but I think monthly will be sufficient for us. Their start time is going to be at noon 30. We can see the first instance will be in 6 days, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. That sounds right. So let's add the scheduled alert. Excellent. Oh, just for the sake of completeness, we'll look at one more setting on this. Under advanced, we can decide if we want to override the preset alert. So if, for instance, you want to use all of the settings of a normal alert, but replace the text to say that it is a system test instead, you could do that here. You can also override the priority of that normally actual alert to be a lower priority to be consistent with the new system text. The one that I did want to show off here, though, is downtime recovery. So in the instance that your network is down during the scheduled time, you can choose a behavior. Either you skip that execution. So if the window elapses, you just ignore it until the next window and test normally, or you could have it immediately execute as soon as the service comes back on. I'm going to choose to skip execution because I don't want the silent test going on at another time that is not lunchtime. Okay, we'll just cancel that change. So here is their schedule for execution history. Right now, their time frame is 1 week. So let's take a look at the next 365 days. You can see here that these are when the next scheduled alerts will be for our silent system test. The neat thing about this is if there is a holiday or a site visit or some other sort of event that would want you to cancel the preset alert for that one particular instance, but still keep everything else scheduled normally, you can go ahead and look at this action slider here and say, oh yeah, month 6, that one in particular, the first Monday, I can recognize that the day it falls on 7/04, that's our VP visit. So we're going to disable, the 6/6. And we can see that this execution is disabled by who and at what time. Just a little bit of accountability. And all of the others will continue to run as normal. And if we change our mind and it gets rescheduled, we can just as easily re-enable it. Just like that. That summarizes how we can do silent testing by a preset, preordained schedule for alert beacons, text-to-speech, and Alertus Desktop, just configuring everything in the web console. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and open up for Q&A and see if there's any other details or interest in this that we can expand out to, and see if there's any place else we can let this webinar take us.
Hi, thank you so much for that. That was wonderful. I did have a question. If I wanted to test my whatever's connected to my alert beacons, like the LED marquees and strobes, is that using a silent test, is that feasible for testing those devices?
It absolutely is. Well, let's go back to our preset alert and take a look at some of the settings that we had there. So we're going to go down to preset alert and we'll just edit the one we've already made. See, it's automated silent system test. We go to expand alert beacon. And right now, although the duration says no duration, this is for error audio. We can, for the duration of the alert itself, change our peripherals right here and have them turn on or off. Either for 30 seconds, a minute, half hour, whatever you would like. So for 30 minutes, these will remain silent just as indicated, but we can say for those 30 minutes, we can enable anything that is keyed as a door lock or as a other device or the LED marquee. It's important to remember with these peripheral settings that they serve two purposes. The first is to create a grouping device that is descriptive. So it would be door locks generally correspond to door locks, but the second is also to dictate a relay behavior. For instance, if the relay will open and close by alternating like a strobe, you could have an alternating or pulsing, or to have a solid. So it's entirely possible if you have two different always on relays with different purposes, one of them might be labeled door lock, even if they're both lights. Please check the configuration of your alert beacon under alert devices to see which peripheral label is used for your individual setting. All right. Did that fully answer your question?
That was exactly what I needed. Thank you.
Sure thing. I'll open up the floor to anyone else. Give it a minute or so while I sip some delicious tea, and we will see if there's anything else that needs addressing.
One more question. If I wanted to test my VoIP phones and other devices and services, is a silent test something I can do with those?
It depends on the device itself. VoIP phones are a little bit more tricky because you can set up which sort of ringtones or no tones you want for it and do multicasting to them. But there are actually two different types of alert services here. There's orange ones and gray ones. Orange ones are respective of this recipient box, whereas gray ones have pre-baked in recipients. VoIP services are gray, so you would be restrained to only the same targets that you would use for a normal test, or would have to create new target sets for them. And in those new sets, you would be able to specify which sort of ring or buzz tone you want to use. But yes, if you know the device, there's often a way to run a silent or unobstructive test with it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure thing. All right. If we are good, then I am more than happy to close this out a little bit early. These how-to series are an open forum where we can explore wherever the concept takes us. As we get a little bit more interaction with more commitment from their stakeholders, I'm sure we'll be able to explore some more interesting venues with it. All right, but for
Thank
today,
you, Brian. That was great.
thank you kindly.
Very helpful.
We'll go ahead and stop the recording, and I hope to hear from y'all soon in our next webinar.